the area in which God calls you to minister is the area that you battle with the most.
Yes.
And
hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Lisa Nkomo, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much, love, for choosing to watch my video again. And as you can see, today we are having women wellness, and we have a beautiful guest. Her name is Tiisetso Selekoe. Did I say that correctly?
perfect.
I've been practicing. I better not butcher the surname.
Well done.
Thank you. Welcome to my channel.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself, just so people know who Tiisetso is.
I'm Tiisetso Selekoe. Like you said, well done.
Thank you.
People butcher my
Hey, I know people butcher surnames so much, so I was like, I need to make an effort.
So yeah, I am a mom, a wife, a leader, an entrepreneur, and I love Christ. Yeah.
I always say this on my channel. I love people that introduce themselves and mention Christ. It's such a beautiful thing, because that is what we are in foundation.
Yeah, no,
That's
I'm anchored on that.
yes. Everything else is around the fact that
Most definitely.
we are children of Christ. So you're Christian.
Yeah.
You are actively working in ministry, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, is currently as well.
I mean, it depends on what you mean by actively working in ministry.
Anything could be, even this, like, you know, when we talk about,
because I mean, some people, when they associate ministry to the four walls of the church. So
no, not just that. Just in general, Tiisetso is known even on social media that she speaks proudly of the Lord.
No, definitely. You call me here, you know Christ is there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's who you are,
That's
which
me.
is what today we are going to go into as well. So today's conversation will be around Tiisetso's journey in terms of church, how she was treated in the church, how she handled it, and the afterwards, the aftermath, as people say it.
Yeah.
So take us through your life before things hit the fan.
Okay.
How was life in church ministry just before things got short?
I don't know. I'm just gonna try. It's long, so I'm gonna try to summarize everything. So I grew up in a Roman Catholic church.
Okay.
My whole life. So bad that my grandparents are part of the people who built the Roman Catholic Church.
Okay.
Back at my grandma's place. So I was a staunch Catholic. But for some reason, I always loved this whole born again vibe. You know, I've always either run away from home to go to those other churches if there were tents around. Literally,
you there?
Yeah, not all of them, because my dad was very strict.
Yeah.
So, but I always longed for that place where you're not just going to church to listen to someone speak, but you're actually seeing like the Holy Spirit
working.
Yeah. So eventually, I think I always talk about how I grew up in a dysfunctional family, right? So when things hit the fan in my home, my mom and I found a church, found a church that we attended, and then we got born again there.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, she got born again there. I got born again at somebody else's church. And it was like not the normal conventional way of who wants to be born again, come in front. Because I actually was seated on the chair, and they called people out to come get born again. I wanted to go, but I didn't know what that meant. So I sat on the chair, and I literally communed with God over there. I said the prayer where I was sitting there. There was no pastor who laid their hands on me and be like, you're born again now. No, I was literally sitting, and I received Christ sitting like there. Then I went back to the church, was groomed in the church back at home. Very different, very traditional church. Yeah, where like dating is a sin. Yeah, don't wear pants to come to church. Don't, literally that kind of church. I went there, but I mean, it built, the person that I am today. So that's why I always tell people that say religion is completely bad. I'm like,
it's not really.
If religion wasn't there, you wouldn't have known how to communicate with God.
True.
So then I went to varsity. That was back at home. So then I went to varsity, was church hopping for a while, loved the Lord. I was on fire for the Lord. I was in the worship team. I was literally the girl. Like literally everything that came out of my mouth was Jesus, God this, God that. Literally people calling me holier than thou, and I wore that title like
with pride,
like a jewel, And eventually, I mean, we were growing in varsity, and somewhere there, I dated a guy who was in the music What?
Instrumentalists. Same church.
No, not the same church.
Okay.
Stay away from people. Sorry.
Just a second.
I'm kidding, guys. We can't pay.
Yeah, no, we can't.
Branch.
Yes, we can't.
So,
joking.
Yeah, we are joking. Please, next thing you call me.
You're gonna come for us.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so I dated this guy, and I thought because he's born again, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
And never make the mistake. I think what I always tell my mentees is like, don't make the mistake to think for somebody else just because you're in the same church, same set of beliefs. You think you have the same values,
yes,
and you receive, what Christ says the same way. You don't, and sometimes we don't leave room to speak about those things.
Yes.
You assume because he's born again, there's no sex before marriage.
We're on the same page.
We're on the same page, yeah, man. Plus, you're in the music, and you're the instrument. You must know, you can't step on the altar without. Yeah. So one day, I think I went to visit him. In my mind, I'm not thinking anything sinister. I just went to visit my boyfriend. How, guys? Then when we got there, he forced himself on me and all of that. But I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to go and tell people about it. And at that point, I remember when I texted him about how I'm feeling and how I didn't want that to happen. He's like, then go to the police and tell them that your boyfriend did 1, 2, 3 to you. And then you're thinking to yourself,
you're not gonna believe.
Yeah, then he starts saying stuff like, who do you think you are? Don't you know, started naming the people that I was in a circle with, the same people that are singing, even named famous people that I can't say here. You think they're just there and they're not having sex, whatever. Who do you think you are? So yeah, whatever. We broke up. Eventually, there was I didn't even know how to process it because I wasn't sure. Do I go tell my mom? And my mom's just going to find out I'm dating. Remember, I come from a church, dating is a sin.
Yes.
Do I go to the cops? What are you going to tell
them?
What
am I going to do? So when it happened, I just want to know when it happened, were you aware of the fact that what's happening is he's actually forcing himself on me?
I mean, when you're trying to fight someone off,
and he does it. So
it was there are people that eventually you're just
yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
Eventually. So yeah, I remember when I got home, the first thing I did was literally I went into the bathtub. I thought I would scrub the dirt away. I literally was crying myself. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, God, whatever. Anyway, so we moved from that. I mean, I brushed it off. I didn't really, dwell on it. I need healing from this now. I brushed that off, and then eventually I met my husband, my husband, then he wasn't my husband then. So
how soon after that was it?
Probably 3 years.
Okay.
2 years later.
2 years
later. So when I met him, we were not dating. He was not my boyfriend either.
Okay.
So I saw him. It was my first time. I had found a church finally because I was church hopping. It was my first time singing at that church, and I saw him walk in, and I'm like, "Hey, brother!" And I was literally at the altar, guys. We're not fully spiritual,
guys. We are not perfect.
But I had to calm myself, bring myself together. Hey, when are you gonna minister? So
let's forget about that.
Yeah, no, he's
for 2
cute.
seconds.
He's cute, but God is cute. Okay?
Yes, God is cute.
So I was Phil then Kanti, he's also looking at me oh, how? Yeah, she's cute. And I think he chased for 3 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because I needed to be sure, I needed to pray, I needed to do all of that. So eventually, on the year that we decided that we'll go on, we'll date and courtship and all of that, that's when we started preparing. Okay, in December we're gonna go for Ilobola and all of that, and the excitement of all of that came, and you're oh, I found the one. And then how next thing you are pregnant somewhere in the year, and we didn't stop the plans of Ilobola because we're just no, we'll do the Ilobola and then we'll do the wine wedding the following year, or in 3 months or whatever. So what I did when I found out, I was terrified. I was
holy heavens!
Oh my goodness! And I was an advocate for purity. So one thing that I always tell people, I'm the area in which God calls you to minister is the area that you battle with the most.
Yes.
And I wasn't aware of that at that point. I wasn't aware of it, but it happened, and I was pregnant, and I was terrified. I'm just like, oh my gosh, what about my mentees?
Yes.
What about, you know, it was so many things that were going on in my head. I wasn't thinking of abortion or anything. I was just like, how am I going to face, you know,
everybody?
Yeah, and how they're going to take me, you know? And then now the words of my ex come in. Who do you think you are? You know? Yeah, so a lot of emotion.
So now you felt like he was right.
Yeah, he was right.
Oh my gosh.
You know? And yeah, so it was a lot of things that were happening in my head that I couldn't process all at once. So what do? Sweep it under the carpet. And then I sent an email to my then pastors, and I was like, hey, this is what happened. I wrote them a whole long novel about, yes, and I had, mind you, like 2 months before or 3 months before I got ordained as a minister formally in the church. And then after that, how was it? Ministers, they got pregnant. It was just like
I can
taboo, guys. Like I was just like, oh God,
I'm sure
now.
People were just like, no, not missing that.
A lot of them, but I've always been a person who's I'm very bold in my love and my teachings of Christ. And one thing I remember when some other pastor sent me a message and he said that this happened, yes, but it doesn't take away your calling.
Yes.
The gifts of God are irrevocable. Whether, you know, even when you don't feel like you are worthy of continuing and being an advocate for purity and, you know, all of that in your mess. He says, I actually want you to come preach at my place pregnant. He's the first pastor who's ever said that to me.
Who was confident
and I'm just like, what? And I'm not going to do that, but that's cute.
So you didn't go?
No, I didn't. No, the shame was too much.
I'm sorry,
No, the shame was a lot.
I
The
can't
shame
handle
was a
that.
lot. Yeah, so then I sent them a message. And then I told them, which probably, yes, I know there are procedures that need to be done, the excommunication thing.
Yes.
They will let me know how it's going to go about, how we're going to go about it. I had a meeting, a physical meeting with them, and they spoke about how disappointed they were and all of that. And then they told me one thing that put me like off a little. They were like, so we're going to put you off everything, and then we want you to prove to us that you are committed. I'm like, okay, that you are not even committed, you are spiritual enough
to come back and work for the Lord.
I'm like, huh? So now I'm no more, because I'm pregnant and I fell into sin, it means I'm no more spiritual. I'm no more, the gifts that I have that the Spirit, you know, instilled in me, all of a sudden now it's becoming excommunicated. You know? So I was just like, for me, I always try to think about, okay, when I received a certain, you know, rebuke, where was my heart? But my heart wasn't. I was ready to be, you know, I was ready to be punished.
Yes, because you knew.
Yeah, because I knew
I was wrong.
Exactly,
and I have to be punished. It's okay.
It's okay. It has to happen so that other people can see, you know. But also, I was just like, oh, kanjan. And then after that, there was stuff like they would remove me from committees, even like not from the forefront. Like if you want to say something or you want to add something, you must take it through me, and I'll filter it, and then I'll take it to. I'll see if it's good enough, type of thing. Whatever suggestion you have, I'll see if it's good enough, and then I will take it to the group. And I'm like, it's okay, I don't have to contribute anymore. Yeah, so it happened. They excommunicated me when I was not at church. So they told the church. So they told the ministers first. They sent them a whole message about how I'm pregnant, and they're going to remove me from, you know, any duties, relieve me from my duties. And then, so then they told the church I wasn't there. There was no formal counseling that happened. There was no, I don't know. For me, I felt like they expected me to just show up at church with the wound, with the shame, while they were also perpetuating the shame. Like people, literally, they were part of the people who were talking about me. I was like the example of things. You know when you go to church and you feel like somebody whispered to the pastor and
the pastor's preaching about your exact situation.
When people come out here and you're just
feeling like somebody told you, I'm here.
And in this case, it wasn't a somebody. I came to you, vulnerable, told you what I've done, and I needed guidance from you, and you didn't give me the guidance. Instead, you ridiculed me, you know. And I think also because of my own traumas, I didn't take it that way. I didn't hate them. I didn't dislike them. I was hurt, yes, but I shoved it under the carpet.
How old were you when this was happening?
How old was I? No, I was 24.
24. You were very mature. I mean, I'm asking because your approach was very mature that, I've done this, I have to be punished. Okay, let's move right along. People are talking about me, preaching about me, and I'm still saying, you know what, I don't hate you. It's fine.
I think for me, I believe in grace, but I believe that God is a God of truth. So you can't preach grace without truth. If you've done wrong, then will graciously, rebuke and teach you and bring you back. I believe in that. But one cannot exist without the other. So in this case, the truth was existing without the grace. So literally I was the talk of the town. After church, they'll be sitting down, Tiisetso, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, and people will tell you, oh, I don't like how the conversation went at church today.
There'll always be that one person who's going to tell you, right?
But also the person was also part of the conversation.
I mean, they were part of the conversation, but at least they'll come and tell you. Yeah, we were talking about 1, 2, 3.
So then I stopped going to church. I stopped going to church. I nursed my feelings, and I was like at home. It was very hard. It was very hard for me to get back to churching or believing that, and there's a certain anger that comes with a person who falls pregnant out of wedlock. Like I can't even, I've seen it with my friends, I've seen it with other people who are not my friends. There's an anger that you have towards yourself, and you kind of project it to other people as well. So you now start seeing from the eye of your hurt instead of, taking that off and seeing, okay, maybe people aren't that bad, so I was angry at myself a lot, and I deemed myself unworthy because of everything else that was happening. I think if I had guidance, it would have been different. I would have channeled my thoughts differently.
I think that is one of the things that the church needs to work on. You see, we can rebuke each other. I mean, yes, the thing of when someone makes a mistake, we have to. The Bible says it as well. So you have to, tell your fellow brother, okay, this is wrong. But we also need to understand that we still need to help that person through it, because now we rebuke people and then just throw them away, and they have to. And it's not everyone that makes it out and back in the church. Some people just go forever and they hate church completely. And we understand, because really we did not treat them the way Jesus would treat them. I think really the church needs to really work on that, like giving the counseling, making sure, even if Tiisetso is pregnant right now, people must know, yes, we don't allow it, we don't approve of it, but we are going to help Tiisetso out of that situation.
But the other thing about it is that the Bible gives instructions on how to do it. My biggest problem about excommunication has always been about the sin is always pregnancy, but it's not the same way if somebody finds out when someone is gossiping or
nothing happens.
No. Actually, they bring you closer because they want to know what's going on. So tell me more. She does that?
Really?
Yeah. So my thing was that, and I know because pregnancy is public and all of that. So there's a lot of
standards at the end of the day.
It's not really what the Bible is saying, and we could take forever if we were going to talk about that. But for me, it's like churches need to have some kind of therapy, like for any situation. Like you cannot rely on your own experience, because your experience is not doctrine. Experience is not set in stone. It's not. It cannot override the word of God.
Yes.
Because I remember what set me free was this other time I went on Facebook and I literally wrote, "Sex before marriage is a sin." And I was pregnant. People knew I was pregnant. People came in, "Oh, you're a hypocrite," says the person who's pregnant, says the one who's carrying a basket. A lot of people said that, and that set me free, because I said, you know what, my sin doesn't take away the truth of God's word.
Yes.
And I had to remind myself, even when I'm hurt, even when these things are happening to me, I cannot allow my experience to override God's truth.
God, yes. So even if I'm pregnant right now,
the truth is,
before marriage,
you can't go to jail and then come back and be like, guys, Georgia. is the way to go.
Yeah, no, you
You
can't.
get what I mean?
So now you said you separated yourself.
Yeah.
You went to just deal with yourself alone. And how did you go through that? How was it? How did you get out of it?
So
How did you get back to the church?
luckily, the church was in Pretoria. So once we got married with my husband, I got a job in Joburg. So we moved.
Okay.
Yeah, so I moved away from
Away
the
from
church.
that.
So I made it seem like,
Started a new life.
Stella moved a bit too far, so I can't come. I'll visit.
Can't, yeah.
Can't, you know, I was done. I remember we'd go to Rhema. We'd visit churches because I wasn't ready to go back and serve. I wasn't ready to put myself in that position again. And I went to a specific church that I go to, and I remember stepping into that church, and God was literally, He was just like, I need you just the way you are. In the sin, in your shame, let me work through you while you're working for me. You know, because some people think the Bible is joking when it says, come as you are.
Yeah.
You don't have to fix yourself
First.
to come to, and the devil plays with our minds, but God won't accept you. You sinned.
How is He going to use
You
me
did
like
this, you did that. So I went there, and God was like, as you are, as broken as you are, I need you as broken as you are, because I need to mend you, and I cannot mend you outside of my will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And now, so I've followed your story and your channel and all of that. So now, when do you get to attempting suicide? Your first attempt to suicide, what was it that, or was it something else? Because I know it wasn't only once, it was multiple times.
Yeah.
Can you take us through those times? What was the reason? What was your reasoning?
Sure, if we get into the reasoning, then we're going to take
3 hours.
forever. And I mean, some of the stuff I'm not ready to share about, but I think, you know, it came to a point where the Bible speaks about hope deferred makes the heart sick, and a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. And hope deferred is what caused me to get to a point where, you know, when you're at a place where you're like, I've trusted God for 1, 2, 3. I've waited for God to come through. I've prayed. I've fasted. I've served. And you'll count all those things like they matter, because you're just like, but Lord, what are you punishing
know they
me
don't
for?
matter.
Yeah,
When
but
you
still
get to
say
that
it.
position, you start counting. You start like, but
like,
God,
let's think about it.
Let's think about
Yeah,
it.
like,
I'm doing the most.
What am I doing wrong? You know? And I remember there was a specific prayer or specific thing that I was hoping God will pull through for me and my family, and he wasn't budging. And not because he didn't want to, you know, at that point I thought it was because God didn't want, or maybe I'm praying the wrong prayers, because you hear people say stuff like that, like, yo guys, people will tell you, no, you're praying the wrong prayer, or I think it's timing. But in my spirit was battling to accept the fact that the timing was wrong, that I'm not supposed to get the thing that I'm asking for, you know. And I was like, at that point, it was just like, I've had enough. There's like one closed door after the other. So I left my job sometime in 2019, and because God instructed me to
do so.
And there was a time when we faced a financial rut, and I'm just like, you made me leave my job,
And not this.
so that I can be poor? Like, no.
Where is God the provider?
I'm just like, you said I should go. You said you drew me out of my comfort zone, where I knew every day on the 20th, every month on the 20th, I have a salary, you know? So
what is this now?
Literally, you know, one day when I'm ready to share my story, it's literally no different than what Job went through. God literally stripped so much away from us, where I was just like, now it seems as though when I call out your name, I'm making a joke out of you. And I said, I don't want that. I need people to know you are an all-powerful God who's able to do exceedingly and abundantly. And I've always been that person. I'm a person who's like, I want your word to be accompanied by power. every place where I step in, they need to know that your power is, your word is accompanied by your power.
Yes.
So now that this is happening,
how are people supposed to become
confident
in what I say?
In my anchor, in my refuge, in the person that I so highly esteem in everything that I do. It didn't literally match what the word was saying. And I came to a point where I'm just like, no, you've called me for a life of suffering.
I can't.
I can't. And all these thoughts come back of, you're not good enough, you're not this, my ex's voices, people's words, who do you think you are, why do you think you should get things? And remember, in my family and in my husband's family, we are both firstborns, the first to start businesses, the first to, it's only when I realized how deep it actually is when I had to sit back and be like, oh wait, I'm fighting a bigger battle.
Yes, there's a lot that's being placed on you.
There's a bigger battle, and you start realizing that, dude, you're not being suicidal because you're crazy. There's a long line of other people before you who are actually suicidal. I remember God taking me through a memory of me seeing my dad hanging himself in the garage and me running to try save him. I remember before that he was kneeling and he prayed to ask God to take his life. And he went to hang himself. And I'm just like, wait, these things they're not just manifesting out of nowhere. It's a generational curse that's literally coming back. And God was like, we need to put it to an end. And you're the one that I've called to put in. And when God has called you to sit in a certain space like that, best believe that if there was an altar for suicide, for mental illness, that altar will try to speak over your life.
Yes.
And you need to be at a point where you're just like, this altar needs to know that the blood of Jesus destroyed it, So I had to move from feeling sorry for myself and crying all the time and realizing that this is war. This is a spiritual attack. From the finances to everything, because I'm the first to make sure that everybody else after me
does not go through this again. It ends right here. And how difficult was that to accept, though?
It was very difficult. I mean, you know how people are always saying, "Oh, but Lord, these people want to born again. They're living their lives and you look at certain friends. They're moving forward, and you're just like, okay, Mina.
Warrior.
God
is good.
Warrior all the time. But what God revealed to me recently was that you cannot compare yourself because we all come from a lineage of some sort, and things happen that we don't know about. Even the person that you're seeing there prospering because you don't know what's happening in their lives, what challenges outside of the ones that you're seeing, they are facing. They also come from a certain lineage. But now you are comparing yourself with a person whose ancestors had already started fighting for their children. But you are the first one to fight. So the battle for you is going to be way harder than the one.
I think I also got to a point where I understood that.
Because
even with me, it got to a point where I was like, I'm serving, I'm motivating people, I speak highly of you. But the people that don't even do that are the ones that are living good lives. How is that? And I had to understand it, really, because we come from different families. You don't know. Maybe 3 generations ago, that person is the one that fought so that they can live the life they're living. Hopefully our kids will also be the ones, and everyone that comes after us will be the ones that are living exactly how we see the others living now. And it takes a lot to accept, because you will continue seeing those people prospering all the time. Well, I even posted a status yesterday on WhatsApp, and I was like, we can't compare ourselves. I was just saying, some of us are just fighting for our children to be in homes where they have their own rooms, they have ensuite bathrooms. Other people were born in that. They are just fighting to buy their own cars and move right along. So you absolutely cannot compare yourself to that person, because you guys are fighting different battles.
Somebody might be fighting not ever getting married. Somebody might be fighting. There's a lot of things that people are fighting. I think what for me, the acceptance came when I knew God was saying that I am pulling you out of it, and I'm giving you the tools of how to break the curses, and not just for your children, but so that you too get to live in the blessing that you are paving for your children. Because sometimes we stop at, I'm a generational curse breaker, and you're breaking all these generational curses until you die, and you don't enjoy the broken curses. You don't enjoy the joy that comes with God fully expressing himself in the blessing that you've been fighting for. So right now the battle is not only I'm fighting the curses, but I'm also fighting to live in the peace of the blessing.
Did you ever feel some kind of resentment maybe towards your child because of what was happening to you? How do you balance mothering someone and while you are going through so much?
I never, not even know. With my child, I think one thing that's consistent, and what my friends will tell you, is that I feel like I needed her. I didn't know, but it was like a gift I didn't know I needed. Yeah, I've never, instead, like I protected my child. I was just like, there's so much happening around me, but I gave myself so much to her that I neglected myself. I wasn't like neglecting her or like resenting her or anything. I gave myself to her
fully.
Too much. Gave myself too much to my marriage, because I'm like, if everything else is failing, let me focus. And I forgot about myself, which was also like an added thing to the whole suicide thing. Like you end up thinking, I don't know who I am. I don't know. I've moved from my position of where God has placed me. I always make an illustration of, if you are in a shower and you move away from the shower, you're not gonna get the water on your body. So I was at a point where I'm away from the shower, but I'm expecting the water to get on my body somehow, to refresh me somehow. Yeah, so I think there was a big contributor, one of the contributors of why I felt like I can't recognize myself. I've molded myself to be this person to my child, molded myself to be this person to my husband, and I had another child as well. So now I need to mold myself to a mother to a boy. Yeah, it was a lot.
And do you remember how you do you remember that specific moment where you felt healed and you were like, I am fine, I am serving, this is who I am anchored in Christ, and this is what I'm going to do for other people as well?
No, I don't remember. I just know that there was a time in February where this year, where I decided to trust the integrity of God's word and to surrender and stop fighting my way out of the season. I wrote the other day, and I'm like, when you're in a specific season, we need to understand that every season has its own weather. You can't expect it's spring and it's all. I mean, now the weather itself, it's spring and the weather is like showing us flames. Ning Ning, it's hot and it's unbearably hot, and then the other day it's a beautiful weather. You're like, how shorts, let's go have a picnic. And Ning Ning, it's a cold front. Now you can't now say the season has ended because it's too hot, now it's summer, or it's too cold, now it's winter. No, you're still in spring. It's just the weather that has changed. So to recognize that, you know what, I'm still in the blessing. It's just me learning to weather the storm and to be like, I'm surrendering myself, because surrender is trusting. It's trusting God's blueprint for your life in the season, and surrendering myself to the season, but also riding the waves of the weather, and not forgetting I'm still in the specific season.
Yes, this is the season.
So I think in March, that's what came to me. Just like, but wait. Who said the season is over? Who said you're not in abundance? Who said, who said? Just because there's this one thing, it's raining the whole week, who said you are out of the season? So I had to hold on to the integrity of God's word actually working in my life.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's a beautiful story. As hard as I can imagine it was going through the journey, because I know even on my side, I won't say I've experienced like extremities in terms of lack, but there are things where you just feel like, God, I'm doing so much for you, for the gospel, but it is hard because I'm not seeing where I am also benefiting from all of this. So really, thank you so much for coming here and sharing your story with us. I just want you to now finally give something to someone who is currently in a situation where they feel low, they feel down, going through maybe trauma that's coming back. How do they go about healing intentionally?
I mean, firstly, I think is to teach yourself every day or remind yourself every day that God is for you, and even in the triggers, even in the ups and downs, He is for you. And my way of intentionally healing is to don't sweep your emotions out of the way just because you want to be done with the season that God is placing you in. Acknowledge your triggers, acknowledge the pain, but don't dwell in the pain. So write it down, speak to God about it. I mean, I tell my mentees that it's okay to tell God that you are angry. And even if it's you're angry at Him, it's okay. And allow Him to be the one that embraces you. God is He's not too deaf that He can't hear you, and His hand is not too short that He can't pull you in and say, I'll guide you through this. And go to therapy, pray, and have somebody that you continuously talk to. But God is for you, and the suffering that you are experiencing right now cannot compare to what He's going to do once the healing has commenced and is done.
And I think it's also important to note that we sometimes think we are cheating God for having someone to speak to, for going to therapy. You're not cheating God at all. God starts, yes, your day starts right there. But when you also, sometimes you just need human interaction to sit down with this and say, this is, I'm going through 1, 2, 3. Help. And for this is to just remind you that God is still there, right there. There's purpose where you are.
And you need to, I think it's important to also pray about who you're talking to.
Yes.
Even the therapist that you pick, there are so many free therapists that you can go to, but also pray that God leads you to a person that can lead you to the healing that's going to unleash you to your purpose.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
I feel like I always, not always say this, but I sometimes when I get people to speak, it's always at it's like I also need it. That word in my life in that moment. So it's always really profound. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys for watching. If you watched right up to the end, thank you so much. Please do subscribe to Tiisetso's channel. Tiisetso does have a channel as well. It's Tiisetso Selekoe on YouTube, and also she's on Instagram. So follow her on Instagram and just follow her. She ministers. She speaks of the Lord, and you can take a whole lot from her social media. So for now, thank you so much, guys. See you again on the next episode. Bye.